Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Top Tier Tiers podcast. This episode, we have a very special guest who I'll introduce momentarily. But you got me, Alfred Yang, Lychee Punnet, as well as Tom, as always.
Hello.
And we're also going to have our special guest. Please welcome to the cast, Mr. Boats Don't Sink, or can we use your name? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. It's
Sure,
on the
this is
Bushiroad website.
very good. So we've got Connor Pelham, also known as Boats Don't Sink on various socials. He works for a card store. He's been around the community for a long, long time. And most importantly, he has done a fair bit of competing in the post-COVID era of Weiss, which will eventually be what we talk about. But before we start, I think there's been a fair few shakeups in the world of Weiss Schwarz this last week. How about we address those, hey?
Absolutely.
Uh, s-
The world will
so the
never be the
first
same.
one.
We were just talking about the rule change, yeah.
Oh well, I was. Oh, you
Or were you
ruined
talking?
my
Did
my.
you or did you want to talk about something
So
else?
he set up the segue of the world never being the same, and then that's my cue to say ever since the Fire Nation attacked. But you ruined the segue,
Oh,
so unfortunately we can't do that. Um,
Avatar.
Avatar
I
indeed. So
was I was
Avatar,
not in on this.
no,
Whoops.
we were ad-libbing that, but it almost worked.
Wait,
Good try, Connor. Anyway, Avatar: The Last Airbender announced as an English exclusive coming 2023. Uh, big news. This was something people have been asking for initially as kind of a joke, like as a meme that people would put down in like the 2016, 2017 surveys. But then we got Adventure Time, and then we got Ruby. So it became more and more likely that we'd actually get what we're looking for from the surveys, particularly if the licensing cost isn't too high. And look, I know a lot of people love Avatar, but it is kind of an old show, so I doubt that the licensing is going to be too difficult. It's just Nickelodeon, right?
as
Uh,
far as I'm aware,
yeah.
or
They're also throwing around.
Nick
They're like throwing around that license a bit right now. I feel
Yeah.
like.
They
cashing in on it.
Yeah, you may as well, right? It's still very popular. And I think that Avatar, even more than Ruby, and more than Adventure Time, I'd say, is really going to shine a light on Weiss Schwarz in the Western world because I think that the demographic of people who grew up with Avatar is also the demographic that is now like able to buy all the things they wanted as a kid, but were not able to, and will also have some amount of disposable income. So I think it's a really incredible pickup. I'm not the biggest Avatar fan, but do you guys have any thoughts? Are you gonna pick up the cards?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think this is the biggest announcement, English original or otherwise, that we've gotten in English Weiss probably ever. Like,
since
I think this is
AOT
bigger.
at least.
Bigger. I think this is bigger than AOT. Honestly, like,
Well, yeah, because it's actually going to be an exclusive, right? Because AOT was
right.
not.
And I think like this, like AOT hits the anime fandom, right? But I think Avatar probably reaches even further than that. Like,
The pop culture
Yeah,
influence, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure
the
there's a lot of
normie
people that don't
crowd.
normally, yeah. So I think, like, this is gonna reach the crowd that like Adventure Time probably tried to reach, except this is something that a lot of people, a little older than who would remember Adventure Time, are gonna remember very fondly and be big fans of. Like, I could
I,
walk into my local card store and mention Avatar, and probably everyone there's gonna know what it is. Like,
People in their late 20s, early 30s, yeah,
yeah,
more or less.
I think this also leaves the door open to a Legend of Korra extension as well. I know that's less well received, but it also has a pretty big fan following.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I can't even think of a like a feasible title that would have been more impactful than Avatar. Like obviously, the MCU would have been more impactful, or Disney and Pixar, but like those titles in Weiss Schwarz, that's completely ridiculous,
Yeah,
right?
that would never
It'll
happen.
never happen. Yeah.
Well, it would never happen in English. If the joke is going over anyone's head, those sets are, well, the MCU not specifically, but both of those sets are on the Japanese side. But the English licensing is probably close to impossible unless Weiss blows up bigger than like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh put together. We're probably never going to see it. Anyway, that is one of the really big announcements. We also got a bunch of other English announcements. We got confirmation that Kaguya and Kaguya season, is it season 2 or just volume 2? I don't know.
Season 2.
It's season
Season
2
2.
Season 2.
Miko's there.
Yeah.
As well as Data Live seasons 2 and 3, the combined booster, confirmed for Japanese, now confirmed for English. I think we kind of all expected that to be happening. It's a little bit awkward given that those are two of the most recently banned sets, but that's just how it turned out, I guess. And outside of that, we've got Tokyo Revengers releasing next week. The Japanese and English metas are very different, so I think we can expect to see Tokyo Revengers be at least somewhat of a force, if not due to power, then due to popularity, because this series is more popular in the West than it is in Japan, right?
I think so. I'm not.
Revengers?
Yeah, probably. I would think, but I'm not entirely sure. I feel like right when it was airing, I saw it like everywhere, and I haven't really seen it much since.
It felt a lot like a seasonal anime, but I feel like it has reasonable cultural impact beyond that as well.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think everyone that I've heard talking about it's the same people I know that were like big on like Goblin Slayer coming out and some of the Danmachi crowd. Like I feel like there were a lot of overlaps between those people wanting to buy those sets.
hmm. So yeah, English is going to be eating good for a while. The next thing, and I'm gonna talk about. Did we ever talk about Weiss Schwarz? Probably not, right?
No, we didn't. That stream
No,
happened after, I think.
yeah, our
Wait,
last review. It may
yeah.
have, but it wasn't really something we needed to talk about very much. Now we know a little bit more about Weiss Schwarz. So for the uninformed, people who don't avidly watch every product stream because you are neck deep into Bushiroad franchises. Bushiroad recently announced for the Japanese side of things I don't know how to put this nicely, a dumbed down version of the game called Weiss Schwarz, featuring higher impact cards, simpler cards, as well as a number of franchises that are very, very obviously targeted towards younger and, well, I say younger, but more like young and adolescent girls, I'd say, because you've got like the adolescents are targeted by some of the idle games, including some of the gacha games, and then the really young crowd, as well as I guess the adolescent crowd, have Disney to look forward to, which is really impressive actually that they've forged links with the Japanese branch of Disney. And they also have Detective Conan, which is fairly popular among all demographics, but certainly more so with young girls, I would say.
Yeah, dude, it's Weiss Schwarz, but for girls. Look at that.
Yes, exactly.
Wow,
There are no girls that play regular Weiss Schwarz at all, not a single one.
not a single one.
And speaking of which, because all girls are dummy dum dums and everything needs to be simplified for them, because that's what Bushiroad's words, not mine. I do not condone any of what I just said. They also made some changes.
Clip that, please. Post it on Global.
We're not being streamed, man. We've got a rule change, and the theory that everyone has is that it was made so we would have a unifying game system, and you'd be able to transition from Weiss Schwarz Blau to Weiss Schwarz very easily. Basically, we have streamlined the refresh rule, and while I don't think I'm ignorant of the rules, Connor here is a much more storied judge and rules historian than I am. I'm going to let him describe what the rule change is.
So
Oh,
yeah, in the simplest, simplest way I can describe it, and what I've sort of been just telling like my locals and stuff. Refresh point is now just part of reshuffling your deck. Like it just all happens at once now. Like that's you don't need to think about really like the complex like impact of it or whatever. Like if you're just playing the game, it's just now as soon as you finish shuffling your deck, you just put the top card into your clock. It's all one action. You don't have to worry about keeping track of, resolving your refresh point later or whatever. I think the example they give here on the website is say you have one card in deck and you take 2 damage. Used to, you would flip over the one card and then shuffle, and then flip over the second card, put it in your clock, and then resolve your refresh point. Now you're just going to flip over the top card, shuffle, put the top card into clock, just all one action, and then finish taking your damage. Overall, like, I know a lot of people that are used to playing the game the old way, especially people that have been playing, as long as me, 5-10 years. We're really used to doing it the way it used to be, and it's going to take some time to fix that muscle memory or whatever. But overall, if you're a new player coming into the game, this is the thing that gets the most questions, like, hands down. Like, nobody asks about anything else as much as, like, what do I do when I'm like have few cards in deck and need to refresh. So
Yeah.
I think that I
I
think
was
that
gonna say
changing
who
this.
asked. Sorry.
Oh man, I think that changing this so that it's just one action, a lot simpler. It's a lot more natural. It's a lot more intuitive, and I think getting people in, especially if Blau is going to be targeted toward like a more casual thing, just having it simpler like this is the best way. So I think it's definitely a change for the better.
I don't think it matters how much experience you have at all. I think this is just a better change in general.
Yeah,
Magic actually made a similar change by changing away from some of these things with the old interrupt incorporating into instance thing. That's honestly the only thing I could look at and compare to the current change.
I'd like
Basically,
planeswalkers,
no.
right? Like redirecting damage towards
Oh
planeswalkers.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So before you had to like attack the player and then the player redirect and then redirect to the planeswalker or whatever. Now you just attack the planeswalker, and that makes so much more sense. And I feel this is a change in line with that. So the mechanics we're removing here. Firstly, we are removing the idea of refresh point being a check type rule action. That doesn't matter anymore.
right.
Secondly, we're removing, and because of that, we're removing people's need to continually keep in mind the refresh points, and as a result, there will probably be less missed refreshes and the like. And thirdly, we're just reducing the number of interruptions that happen in the game. Because if you think about it, like in the course of a normal game, if you run out of refresh, you've now been interrupted by refreshing the deck, reshuffling the deck rather. So that's one thing that happens. Continue your action, and then you have to be interrupted again by the refresh point. We've just kind of fused these two interruptions into one. So now, as soon as you reshuffle the deck, the first action you take, the literal next action you have to take, is putting a card from the top of your deck to your clock. The only thing that could possibly supersede that is, well, conceding the game, which is a good thing. This means that it's all just, one action. You don't have to think about it after you've done it, and the game just continues on. It's better for game flow as well. So overall, I think it's a really good change. Making things simpler in this regard is really helpful, and I think literally everyone should be happy about it. The only person who has um, any inclination towards not being happy about it, I think, is probably Taya, because now she has to update like 6 blog posts, and
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
that is the literal only downside. I think everything else, if you have a concern about it, if you have a complaint about it, well, it actually doesn't change how the game goes. Like, say you were going to refresh a climax with the old system. Well, this time, instead of refreshing a climax, you refresh a non-climax. That doesn't make the new rule better. It just is a different variation on your deck order. That's all it is. So that doesn't really change anything at all. It does actually buff a few things. Like, for example, if you are 1/6 and your last card is a climax, if it is a door, or sorry, a comeback, I guess I have to say, because Connor's here.
Yeah,
If it
we
is a
don't allow
choice,
that D word here.
if it is a choice, if it is a blue gate, if it is a standby
Standby.
climax,
Yeah, that's the big one.
then when you trigger, the climax is now in resolution zone as you reshuffle. You reshuffle, take 1 damage, you've now leveled up, you now have 6 cards in graveyard, plus you clock 1, and then your standby or your comeback trigger or your blue gate or your choice or whatever, that now resolves and you will have a target now in that case. Now you will still. This doesn't mean like this is a massive buff or anything. It's a slight buff because you have to be at 1/6. It has to be the last card in your deck. But it is something, and for the same reason, salvage brainstorms are very slightly buffed by this. Uh, I searched a lot to see if I could find any cards that were outright nerfed by this.
Compass.
And the
Yeah.
Compass, yes. So
Yeah.
Compass is one of them because Compass, you say you're at 3/6 and you're gonna Compass to try and wait. No, that doesn't work. No. Well, Compass is no.
Previously, if you compass and miss, you're guaranteed to take the compass as your refresh point, so you can't refresh point to climax.
Yes,
Now you
but now
refresh
you
point
can.
something else, and the compass is a guaranteed damage. So, whoops.
The only other card I found, well, I didn't. It's not like I looked for hours and hours, but I also found there's a 1/1 zero note Skyma event which reads 1/1 brainstorm 3. If you hit a climax, heal 2. So if you are at X6 and you have less than 3 cards in deck, even if you hit a
Okay.
climax with this event, you now don't heal. So sucks to suck.
Oh,
Previously, it would have healed, and then
Oh,
you would take a refresh.
yeah.
So
darn.
That's the
long
same.
story short is,
Does the Persona 4 card? It has to mill to heal, right? It has to like hit or is it a top check?
are you talking about the
The,
Margaret?
maybe.
The
Does that
3/2?
mean if we play a
No, I
legacy
think that's
event,
level. It's a level 2, I think.
do we use the
The
old
3
rules or the new rules?
old rules. You'd have to use the old rules. That's
Is
how
there,
Pokemon does
Probably.
it. Like
Yeah, I think you would
Pokemon
use the
is
old rules if you were playing like a legacy event. Like
is there no
Pokemon
Sakaima's
has
still the best?
Yeah.
still the tier 1 deck that is probably the worst in tier 1. What the question was about P4, right? So the
Yeah.
level 3 Margaret in P4 mills 3, I'm pretty sure, because out of the 3 of us, I would bet my literal whole life savings that I've played
So
that
here's the
card
one.
more than the
It's
both of you.
Naoto and Yamato Takeru. It's on
Oh
attack, pay
yes,
1 mill. If
you
it's
mill
male or
1.
female impersonator, you heal. So you
You
can't do
get to
that at
heal,
X6
yes.
either.
So read Margaret Controller of Power. It's Persona 4 number 87.
Which P4?
Vanilla boost. Oh god, re-edit is I'll read it anyway. Up to once a turn, when this attacks, you may pay 3. If you do, mill 3. If there's at least one climax card there, you can heal 1.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's at least one event card, you
Yeah, I
stop.
remember this one.
You,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
okay,
just
so we
understand.
found
Okay.
multiple cards which have been objectively nerfed by this new change,
Yeah.
but
Pretty fringe though. Like,
it really doesn't matter. The long and short of it is we've nitpicked, but it is a really streamlined change, overall a good change. I'm in support of it.
so I think one of the things that I've actually seen come up in playing, like actually come up multiple times in one day of playing, it's actually something in favor of this new system, where if you have an effect that lets you like draw multiple cards and like discard. Previously, you would have to discard before you knew what your refresh point is, but now you get more information before you have to discard,
Right. So
which
I had a question
sometimes
about
comes up with
that.
like color fixing, right? So you have like a random yellow card in your hand. You're like, do I need to hold this to clock to be able to play my yellow cards, or maybe I'll like refresh point yellow and I can discard it or something? And that came up for me a few times playing Danmachi today with like the brainstorm draw ditch and stuff like that.
So
An
if
extremely
you're in the middle of a draw effect that draws multiple cards, you get to see your
Yeah.
refresh point before you decide to draw another card, right? Okay.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an even simpler example. Is just when you are about to level up with damage and you need a certain combination of colors, because you now take the refresh point before you confirm damage, you have a easier, like, you are able to now confirm what colors you will and won't have after the damage sticks. So if
Yeah.
you're at like 1/5 and then you take 2 damage, previously, if you needed 3 colors, you would have had to like math it out and bet on what you would take as refresh damage. Now you'll be hit to 1/6. You'll know exactly what you can put in level zone because you'll know what the remaining damage is going to be. So
Yeah, you'll
it's
never
just
level the wrong color off of refresh point.
Right
or
back.
rather,
Sorry.
yeah, it is. So it is a really powerful overall effect. I think it is still overall positive because it's not like certain decks benefit from this more than others. Like, oh no, the 2 colors needed at level 1 deck is slightly buffed if you can somehow get close to refresh at level 0. It's like,
I did
Such a
this thing.
super fringe thing. Yeah, I mean, like, Dunmachi specifically just happens to have come in play mill
Oh,
free,
yeah.
so that's fine. And like a deck
I
like
also
that
I also
is,
hit 3 Lily coin flips in a single turn.
I saw that picture. You had
Yeah, I had like 13 cards in hand.
yeah, at level 0, which is pretty funny. Lily also mills when she comes in, doesn't she?
Yeah, mill on play and mill to coin flip. She's like
God,
the
just
only coin flip that mills, I think.
all the deck speed. But I mean, it's a good change. Anyway,
Yes.
so that is
All that to
all of
say, it's a good change.
yes. I'm look. We've done all the nitpicking. I think if you at this point take away anything except for it's a good change from what we're saying, then you probably weren't listening to us, or you weren't intending on listening to us in the first place, and that's fine.
Oh,
You
Or you're a
can
hardcore Persona
disagree.
4 player.
Yeah. I am sure that, I mean, how many people in the world can have played more Persona 4 than me? Surely not that many. Like, there surely cannot be that many. I
Can't be.
refuse to believe there are that many. Anyway,
there are a lot of Persona
let's move
fans
on.
out there, dude.
Yeah, but they don't have friggin' 12 decks like I do. Anyway, the topic of today's cast, and part of the reason why we brought Connor specifically on, is a topic that Tom proposed a few weeks ago in regards to playing Weiss, or rather playing card games in general, over the course of months or over the course of a season, with a goal in mind. This is more applicable to other card games than Weiss. Like, for example, Magic, you can grind out. They're not PPTQs. They're like store championships or whatever now,
I think
right?
they're RCQs right now, I think, is what they're called.
Sure, whatever they are, there's been a bunch announced. My friend is going to drag me to them. I don't have a Pioneer deck, so I don't care. But he's going through a lot of what we will be talking about in this episode. Basically, for a lot of card
Yeah,
game
RCQ.
circuits, yeah, a lot of card game circuits, you have the chance to play with a long-term goal in mind, whether that long-term goal is getting onto the qualifiers, or getting to nationals, or even getting to worlds. And it is a really big thing to think about because you're going to be devoting a lot of time to it. But it can also be really rewarding, I think, as well. So before we keep going, do either of you have any thoughts as to why you might do this? Like, what's the purpose of playing with this in mind?
Um, should I go first? Or
Yeah, go for
I
it.
don't
Alright,
know.
go ahead.
I mean, I think it's fun. Shouldn't that be the
Yeah.
the number one reason? If it's
Yeah.
not fun, you
Yes.
shouldn't do it.
Yeah, especially if
Yeah.
you're like a challenge oriented, like challenge driven person, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fun to try to like overcome, right?
Mm-hmm. But I guess secondary to that, you know, you get to travel and meet people that you might not have met before, or haven't seen in a long time. You know, get to eat different food than you're used to.
It's not just the people, it's the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
It is
like
it's an excuse to
even if
travel to a
it's just
different place, go out from home.
exactly. Like, even if it's in the same country, you're not going to tell me that Florida and San Francisco are the same place. That's patently ridiculous. They've got completely different cultures, completely different food,
And one
completely
is
different
warm and the other
everything.
is quite possibly the coldest place on planet Earth. So
I'm actually unfamiliar enough with American geography that I have to ask which one is which.
San Francisco is there's a lot of have you never heard the quote, the supposed Mark Twain quote, like coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
So
It's not that bad.
first, so
No, it's not. I've been there, but
as someone who was literally born in San Francisco, no, I've not heard that, but I also
oh
haven't lived
man,
there in a long time.
it's just windy, right? Like
I thought that was Seattle.
no, that's
It
rain.
is.
That's rainy.
I think Seattle does have its. Yeah, I mean, there are a
Anyway,
few American cities that are windy. Chicago as well, but
point is that
Chicago's hella windy. Yeah, windy city.
places are really different. Like, you go to Chicago, you get to deal with the wind, you get to eat
Hot
deep
dogs.
dish pizza and
Hot
hot dogs.
dogs.
Yeah,
Lizzies. I
yeah.
love hot dogs.
Uh, and if you were to go to, for example, uh, I mean, there are places in the US which are just tourist destinations, right? Like Las
Yes.
Vegas,
Yes.
or like even, I mean, there's Houston, and shout outs to Hillary and her stupid funeral museum that I am not going to go to again. But just going and being a tourist for the days that you're not playing the tournament is totally like a totally reasonable way to use your vacation time, and it's something I've done previously as well.
Yeah, for sure. I
But
definitely have
Yeah. And
as much
we use
fun
that
as
we use
as
that
much
vacation time
fun
to
on
take
the
you to
like.
Outback.
oh
Oh
my
my
god,
god, yeah, that's true. We did do that.
because you people are terrible. Anyway, uh, I think the first thing you said, the fun of it, it really hits the nail on the head because at the end of the day, you're talking like allocating months of your life, and not rather than just months of your life. It's more like weekends, which are the time where you kick back, you just chill with your family, with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or just catching up on stuff and resting. You are devoting a lot of those weekends to being on the road, being in uncomfortable class flights, and dealing with the stresses of accommodation and deadlines to playing card game tournaments. So you really need to like know that you're going to enjoy it, or you should make sure that you do it in moderation. I think that's a bit of a warning before you decide to dedicate 6 months to grinding Weiss.
Yeah, if you
Uh,
don't enjoy it, you're gonna be miserable.
yeah,
Like
no matter who you
that's
go
true of
with.
any card game, and probably really any like competitive hobby, right? Like
Exactly.
if you don't enjoy it, dedicating 6 months straight to it is going to make you miserable.
Yeah, no matter how much money you're making from it. Because like, oh, that's another thing we should mention. Weiss doesn't really have a lot of money in it, but it has recently had a pretty significant injection of money into it because the winners promos for these events have been selling for multiple thousands of dollars, which is a
Yeah,
not insignificant amount of money. Just keep in mind that even if you skimp on everything, even if you stay in your relatives' backyard sheds, even if you skip meals, which you shouldn't do on tournaments, by the way, even if you road trip with like four other people instead of taking flights, it still costs a lot of money to do this. Like, it's not just what you're doing, but also opportunity cost. It's very easy to get sick, and when you get sick, you have to take time off. Um, like accommodation costs money. When you're on holidays, you tend to think, "Oh, I'm on holiday. I can just eat out," and that can triple people's food allowances for the week if you're not careful. So you have to take that in mind when you're thinking even the top three promo can get me like $700. Well, if it cost you like $500 to go there in the first place, and then you didn't even the risk that you don't win the promo, for example, is always there. Is that really worth it? And that's kind of why you need to have an incentive that's not just for the money or for the promos. You want to see places, eat good food, meet people, and form friendships. I think is a lot of what we need to keep in mind when you make this decision.
for sure.
Okay,
I think
so
another part about your goal as well that's important before we move on
yeah,
is
yeah,
know to what degree you're really willing to dedicate yourself to it before you go in. Especially, if you're doing this and like preparing with a group of people. I've definitely heard from people before. They're like, "Yeah, I want to get really good. I want to like get good enough to top and win a regional, right?" But if they're not really dedicated to that, they're not gonna put in the time, and it ends up where maybe they're just dragging themselves along because they say that because they want to, be part of the group, but they don't really actually want to put in that much effort. And I think really setting your expectations on where you want to end up, because there's nothing wrong with just saying, yeah, I want to go have a fun weekend and have like a positive record, like a 4-3 record or whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with that if that's where you want to be. Just know how much you want to put in beforehand, because you're gonna make yourself not have a lot of fun, and potentially the people that you're playing with as well. If you're not if you set some expectation in their mind and then don't fulfill that.
Yeah, that's a really important point, especially because a very prominent format in Weiss is trios.
Oh,
Uh, if you are like yeah, you can. There's not going to be a massive shortage of players. If you duck out at the last moment, someone will probably fill their place. But if you're going to be unhappy, moaning, groaning, complaining, I didn't get to play the deck I wanted, my deck sucks. If you get to the point where you're that sort of person, you're not really doing yourself any favors, you're not doing your friends any favors. So if you think that that's going to be what's going to happen in the end, or if you're the sort of person who will only have fun if they're winning, then I feel like it's probably good to reconsider, not just for everyone else's sake, but also for your sake. Because if you're gonna drive in a car for 9 hours to a singles event, and then you're gonna be the one dragging the entire party down because you went 0-2 because you had a really unlucky break, is that really the way you want to spend your weekend? That's
unless
more
you're
of a
No,
just
mindset
I've
thing.
been there before. I
unless
know
you're
that's
just
not
that
the way.
good.
That's not the way you want to go out. Like,
Yeah, it might just be a mindset thing because, like, at that point, it's really important to be able to change gears and be like, oh well, I didn't do
better
well.
luck
I'm
next
just
time.
going to
Yeah,
enjoy the
like,
town. Yeah, like
yeah.
I have a friend recently from the recent Pokemon regionals who came down. He flew down with his girlfriend, and he topped the most recent regionals before that. He's a very good player. He streams. He went 1-3, I think. It was something like that. It was not a great record. When I saw him, he was moping about in the lobby. But the next day, when I asked, "Where are you? I'm going to go return your. I would like to return your cards that I borrowed from him." He was like, "Oh yeah, I went to like an art museum. I went to the Acme Film Museum exhibit, and we're kind of taking in all the culture. And we had a great breakfast." And it's like you've got to be able to do that. You need to be able to shift gear and take advantage of this as kind of like a sort of vacation rather than letting it drag you down and making you feel really bad. So, uh, yeah, that's that. We kind of have, if you do decide to join up with a testing group, you should really figure out what everyone's expectations are. Like Connor said, you don't want to be the person who shows up to testing and then sits in the corner playing your Switch because you don't feel like playing Weiss or you're just here to go out for food. If that's what it is, then don't show up for testing, just show up for food. That's totally fine. But make sure that you don't drag everyone else down. Make sure that you have realistic expectations.
And you don't want to be the guy that shows up to a testing group, with a pile of meta decks ready to start grinding out games, and everyone else is just, sitting there, playing something else or playing just silly waifu decks or something, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with playing those decks, but not when you've set the expectation of, grinding out games to win a regional.
I have been in that position before as well. I joined up with a group of people from interstate as well as some really good grinders from my region. We got the Airbnb done. We were there several days in advance. I show up with everything ready. I've got multiple decks ready. And then they just spend the day playing Super Smash Bros. And it's like,
Yeah, like,
really?
that's not what I'm here for. Like, what?
I should note they were playing Smash 64, which is my favorite Smash. I beat them all very badly. But I'm there to play. I'm there to play cards. I'm not there to play Smash. And like, you need to respect everyone else's time as well as your own. Okay, I think we've covered that in reasonable depth. Now, when you've actually decided I'm going to dedicate the next 4 to 6 months of my life to grinding this, or if you're a Magic grinder, you're dedicating much longer swaths of time. I don't know what Yu-Gi-Oh circuit's like. I'm not super interested in finding out.
No
But
clue.
you have decided all of this. What do you do now? How do you plan for these events? What can you guys share your experiences?
Um, you mean just like
Yeah, just literally tell us how you
literally
went about it.
anything?
Which tournaments did you decide to go to? How did you go
Oh yeah,
about making the bookings, all that? And because you've been to trios events, you can talk about how that influenced the planning as well.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, the most important thing is to decide which tournaments you're gonna go to. If you're not gonna go to all of them, and then
Hmm.
obviously, because I don't think I've ever done a season where I've traveled to every single tournament. I think
Definitely not.
Connor might have gotten close. I think you might have, right?
I did all but one in the US this past, like, BSF.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
California is hard for me. It's like 700
Yeah,
plus.
and living in California, it's hard to go.
It's hard to go anywhere else. Yeah.
But yeah, I generally decide which tournaments I want to go to, coordinate that with friends, and then make the bookings based on that. And then also, as a secondary thing, I will also figure out which sets are legal for the tournaments I'm gonna be playing.
I think that's more than secondary. I think that's primary. You've got to be, if you're
Well, it's
dedicating this much of your
secondary.
life.
It's secondary to actually booking, is what I mean.
Sure, that's fair. You need to physically be at the tournaments, but if you're going to take it that seriously, I think what you said is really important. You need to kind of know what's legal and what you're going to play. So how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, you just look at this. Oh, okay. I say it's like it's so simple. I mean, so take a look at the schedule, release schedule. There should be one somewhere. Someone
Where would you
industrious
find a schedule? I'm
Official
sure
website should have
official website, a Discord channel with a pinned message, something like that. There's someone industrious enough out there to have made some kind of convenient graphic about the timeline of
I'm sure
physical release.
there's someone out there who maintains a very convenient graphic, possibly pinned at the top of the Facebook group and the top of various Discords. I don't know who it could be, but there's someone out there, right?
It's a little bit of a.
It's pretty out of date. I need to fix that.
The joke is that Connor maintains this graphic, and it's not that out of date, right? It's still mostly
it's probably like beginning of July. It's probably a couple weeks, but yeah, worst case scenario, right? If you're not in any of those groups and like you're not big on that stuff, like official website has upcoming products on it. So, and it's gonna have release dates and product pages for probably anything that's like close enough to actually be relevant during the tournament season.
Yeah. So like, what do we call it? So look at the release date. If there's anything, this is specifically if there's a deck that's coming out during the season, you probably want to have like a primary deck that you're gonna be playing before that point. I think having 2 decks in general is a pretty good idea.
having a backup
for playing
is
during
good.
the season. Yeah, so in case anything happens, in case you hear randomly that a bunch of people are gonna be playing the deck that gets destroyed by your secondary choice, you might as well just have it.
I think that's easier
two
than
or more
ever
actually. Some
days.
seasons I've had 3 or 4 decks. It really depends on like, and it's really about giving yourself more options, right? I always have trouble making up my mind when it comes to this kind of thing. So what I would do sometimes is before the era of electronic registration for deck lists, I would show up to events with like 3-4 different decks with deck lists ready. Because I can't make up my mind.
Okay, I can't say I've ever done that before, but I have shown up with a blank deck list on the day and filled it out at the venue. Although that I remember
I
doing
always
that.
filled out deck lists at the venue.
I remember doing that on specifically because I wasn't sure if I'd get all the cards I needed for my first choice. So I brought my because get your cards in advance. Like you should get your cards in advance. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes the people that are getting you the cards are meeting you at the place and then they're sick or they're running late and you can't confirm things, in which case a backup deck is a really nice thing to have. There are other considerations as well. Part of it has to do with the fact that Weiss specifically is a card game where we have knowledge of what's coming out, and we even have deck lists from Japanese people who have done lots of testing that we can kind of use, or steal rather, to put in our testing gauntlets, or even just as the decks we choose to play. So, the recent release of Danmachi, for example, on release, I think a super efficient, super streamlined deck list was already available, super tested, for anyone who wanted it, because it was a well-known deck in Japan, slightly fallen out of favor, but if you looked even slightly hard, you could find a deck list very easily. And because of that, you can plan ahead. If you've done some testing or if you've fought this deck before, you know how strong they are. You can kind of plan what you're going to play based on the release schedule, which I guess is part of what I was getting at when it came to thinking ahead and thinking what you would run. Because let's say there's a tournament tomorrow. What would you guys play for tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tournament tomorrow.
Yes.
Is Danmachi legal?
Yeah, sure. Danmachi's legal.
Okay. I would either play Danmachi or maybe quintuplets.
I'd probably Danmachi.
Bar choice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So that's with Danmachi legal. Now, what if the tournament had been a month and a half ago? What would you have played?
Month and a half ago. Can we just?
Yep.
I went to
So
a tournament a
Danmachi is
month
not
and a
legal.
half.
Yes, Danmachi is not legal.
Okay.
I went to a tournament a month and a half ago, and I played Fubuki Roboco Hololive.
Let's just pretend you played.
That was a real thing that happened. Almost exactly a month and a half ago.
Month and a half ago.
Yes.
Right? It was like June 11th, June 10th and 11th. It was like 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 weeks.
Right. So at that point in time, you played Hololive and Tom played Fate.
Yeah,
is what happened, right?
Oh wait, for Houston. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, Houston.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually
played
happened.
Fate.
That's a real thing.
Yes. And Danmachi coming out has changed your answer pretty drastically, both because it is a functional deck and because the other most popular, like, what was the most popular deck before Danmachi? Well, the answer is probably actually Hololive, but what was the other most popular deck?
Mushoku.
Exactly. And 8 standby Mushoku versus Danmachi. How is that matchup?
Pretty favorable for Danmachi. I can't say I've played it much myself, but that's Danmachi's goal is to beat standby decks. So
yes, this is the single most lopsided matchup in English Weiss right now, not counting incredibly bad decks.
Yeah. At the top tiers, it's
yes,
the most targeted matchup at least.
So if you were to plan to continue playing through this period, you would need to know that Danmachi crushes the previous tier 1 deck that everyone voted as tier 1, like community tier lists, all influencers, everyone says it's tier 1, and it is this really strong deck, but Danmachi gets over its walls pretty effortlessly, it locks its back row, it is just better at compressing, it does everything better in that head-to-head. So you need to take that in mind. You can't just say, I'm going to play Mushoku, or I'm going to play decks that target Mushoku, because once Danmachi comes out, Danmachi is not only the best anti-Mushoku deck, but it also means you shouldn't play Mushoku. So if either of those were things that you want to do, and Fate, depending on who you ask, Fate could target other parts of the metagame, but like, Mushoku's was a very safe choice a few weeks ago. Now, I would not take it to a tournament. Like, straight up would not. It might still be tier 1, because it's very good against a lot of decks, but I would not take 8 standby Mushoku to any tournament where Danmachi is available. I would not.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell someone not to, but I wouldn't do it. I'd be scared.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the only deck you have and you enjoy playing it and you think that the matchup's not as bad as you think, or if you think that you're just
obviously your matchups against the rest of the meta didn't get any worse. Like, you're still just as good against every other deck. So you maybe you just dodge the Danmachi, I don't know. But I'd be too scared that I'd run into that matchup.
It's definitely a really good example of how volatile the meta can be. Not just out of season, because we're not actually in a season yet, but also like stuff like that can happen in a season quite easily.
This is one of those times that you would want to have 2 decks, right? Because you could take Mushoku, and then if you get to the tournament and you see everyone is sitting around playing like casual games with Danmachi, like you probably switch off Mushoku.
Yes.
Because make no mistake, Mushoku is still really strong. It's just it has this like 70-30 matchup against. It's probably worse than that, honestly. 75-25 matchup in against Danmachi that you don't want to ever have to fight. So yeah, it's important to keep an eye not only on the releases coming up, but to have an ear to the ground in relation to what the decks coming out are going to look like. Like for example, look, I don't know how much either of you know about Tokyo Revengers, but just by being in the various discords and reading what other people say and discuss, I've mostly concluded, based on other people's opinions, that Tokyo Revengers' best deck is probably a 12 standby sort of deck, and it will probably be functional simply because there's no other standby decks that push it out completely, and because it has the 12 standby thing, it's probably slightly better against decks like Danmachi than Mushoku is. This is all just information I've osmosed. I've not even read the set list for Tokyo Revengers, but if you are keeping like up to date with releases and you're willing to do a little bit of research, all of the information is there for you to make a decision about what you're going to play over the course of a season.
Super important. I would actually argue keeping track of what people seem to like and dislike is more important than paying attention to the schedule. Because like, I have plenty of examples of like seasons where people just kind of ignored really good decks that were like super popular. Like in 2019,
Bang Dream was the most played deck the last
yes.
season before COVID, and I don't think anyone thought that Bang Dream was the best deck.
I thought Bang Dream was fairly popular just because it's Bang Dream, but like the deck that people were really sleeping on that season in America,
ReZero.
No, it was Fate. No one
No,
played
it's
Fate.
Fate.
It was definitely Fate.
Fate.
Okay,
like
Fate was
no one
literally
played Fate.
legal. Well, it's because it was legal for no regionals.
For WGP, it released in March. It released earlier that year.
I'm talking about BCS.
Oh, I'm talking about WGP. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know JP. I don't know what happened to JP. I don't.
Basically, like Fate kind of released to little fanfare because people thought it sucked in America. But then Japan started running it, and it was super popular in Japan, highly regarded. But for whatever reason, people just don't like Fate.
I am of the opinion that a significant part of the Fate ban was because Bushiroad didn't want you to buy any more Fate product, to be quite honest.
I think people also complained about it, probably. It was not a very pleasant deck to play against. But
agreed.
But where was I? People just kind of don't like Fate for whatever reason in America. Like not the series, but like as a property in Weiss, yeah. They don't like it. So
but like so what we take away from this isn't necessarily that we just parrot everything Japan does. We should also keep an eye on the representation, the things like the community tier list, know about local metagames. You can scout if you have contacts in the area. But basically, it doesn't matter how good you think decks are. It doesn't matter if you think Sunshine is the best deck in the format. If no one's playing it, then you shouldn't really be preparing for it. And,
by the way,
same.
That Nationals that I played Fate for, I got into Top Cut via diversity rule tiebreakers, which was so funny, considering how popular that deck was, at least in Japan. And then after Nats, people started to figure it out. But it it was like a tier 1 deck, and no one played it. No one played it in America for whatever reason. It's really, that's why, like, to underscore what Alf said about paying attention to what people are doing, what people like.
No, I
super
see.
important.
This is why you're such a big diversity role proponent. I see now. I'm kidding. So
paid off for him one time.
Yeah, for one time. It paid off for a bunch of people one time, and it probably screwed out more people than that, like
me,
just by definition.
The last WGP Nats I went to, I was 13th and got kicked out of Top Cut.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely. All right, so keep an eye on the metagames, keep an eye on what is being played and what's popular. Sometimes you might be able to find something that attacks the metagame in a really powerful way that other people might not be prepared for. And with that in mind, these are new releases. let's talk about getting cards near or close to the release date. How do you guys go about doing that?
Definitely not using TCG Player.
Definitely not using TCG Player.
Takes way too.
What's wrong with TCG Player?
It's not that it necessarily takes a long time, but it's just so random. Like sometimes shops just take fucking forever to
especially
send you your cards.
If you're ordering from a lot of places and your orders don't hit the threshold where like TCG Player forces tracking numbers, which is $50, I believe. So like if you order like $20-$30 of cards from a bunch of different places, like you're probably not getting any tracking numbers, and it might be like 2 weeks before your cards show up.
Also, I did this as a test for Springfest, actually. I was missing a foil for a deck I was playing. I ordered that foil from like 5 different stores on TCG Player.
Yeah.
If you want to guess what you could probably guess what happened here, but like 3 out of 5 of the orders they sent me the wrong card. They sent me the regular rarity version of the card.
Oh my god.
One of them, the 4th one, just did not have the card and then refunded me because they had a listing for a card they didn't have, and the 5th shop got me the card. But it was
so what you're saying is order like 7 copies of a card and you'll get 1. That's what you have to do every time you buy a new deck, right?
Just do it in advance. I think.
Yeah, do it for an
order from TCG players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your order is gonna arrive a few days before you leave, if something's wrong with it, then you're screwed.
Yeah,
right? Like,
especially because you have to submit your deck lists a week before the event now. So you really want to get that squared away beforehand if you're gonna use TCG Player. Otherwise, I think nothing beats having friends.
Hey, yeah, I was going to say, if you know people in lots of places, hit up some card shops or some people there just to get, even if you're just borrowing the stuff, right? Like if you plan on buying it off TCG Player later, but you just want to have it guaranteed, right? Hit people up, see if you can get the cards.
And like maybe a more realistic strategy is to maybe ask on a Facebook group, because not
not everyone knows.
Not everyone
in every city in North America.
Yeah, weird flex, man. But yeah, people are your not stores, but like players, people in the groups, Discord and otherwise. Also a great asset for getting cards at short notice.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure every locals has like 1 or 2 guys who just buy probably more product than they really should. And they might be in slightly questionable financial shape, but if you need cards, then they just opened 3 cartons for HoloLive SPs, and you might just be able to get your hookup from that guy.
Well, speaking of that, actually, I feel like that is a benefit of buying a set that was opened a lot. So like, for example, finding spares and replacement cards for like Fate is a completely different ballgame than like for HoloLive, right? Because there's so much more HoloLive product than there is Fate product out there.
Yeah. You walk into a random store and just like ask if someone has the HoloLive card you need, they'll probably have it.
They probably have it, yeah.
Fate, like there might not be a store within 100 miles that's even heard of the card.
Yeah. And failing all of that, I mean, a vendor at the venue is likely to have way more likely to have HoloLive stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Than, Fairy Tale.
Yeah, pro tip, don't rely on the vendors at regionals for anything. Like, there were regionals I went to where the vendors, like, their entire case, like, showcase of cards had, like, 10 Weiss cards, and that was, like, all they had.
They have boxes, though, right?
Yeah, they had, like, a few, like, Rent-A-Girlfriend boxes and, like, Slime Volume 2 and, like, Alicization Volume 2, and that was it.
It's always an option. You could always buy a box at a venue to get the card that you're missing. It's
yeah. I mean, if you have to, yeah.
I think I have.
I've not done it, but I've watched people do it.
I've seen some people get very close to that really bad situation.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen someone do it.
Oh, I've definitely watched people buy packs for like uncommons.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
uncommon. They need to like buy packs until they hit it.
My friend went up to 12 packs before he found a Veil of Summer, and he needed 3, so he.
Dude, that card's like 1 per box, I feel like.
So I think an unsaid thing, like we've kind of skimmed over it. We're all assuming that we're all trying to get cards for the lowest possible price, mixed in with convenience. I think that if you dedicate yourself to grinding and intend to play a really powerful deck on release, then you need to be prepared to pay premiums. Like
Yeah.
you can't expect to pay, UTE divided by 100 for the English version of the card if it's a set that not everyone's going to open. That's just not going to be the case. An example we were talking about prior to the cast was Danmachi, actually. Danmachi on release. We'll use the Brainstorm as an example. How much was it? Like
15
15?
bucks.
Did you
Wait,
say?
Yeah.
On
seriously?
release?
Yeah.
On
Seriously?
release,
Yeah,
it
it was
was
like
$15.
yeah.
Since then, it's been a couple weeks since then. It's dropped to $6.
Yeah.
You can't expect the $6 price on release, especially if you have a tournament very soon. You have to be prepared to dole out a little bit extra if you're going to look for that speed and efficiency. And the same goes for like playsets. It's a meme right now in the community that you can buy a
$100 playsets.
$100 playset of
Oh my
I have to use an
God.
example that's because like Hololive, you can actually get a $100 playset if you ask a lot of people. Fate Grand Order Camelot, you probably can get a $100 playset because the cards just aren't worth that much right now.
Yeah.
Danmachi, you're probably getting close to that. But if you were trying to get a playset on release, no one's going to sell you a $100 playset. No one's going to sell you a $150 playset. They'd be asking $220, $250 ballpark.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the cards immediately,
Especially
you
if you
never
want
want to
trial
have to worry
decks.
about it. Exactly. And promos as well.
Yeah.
And if you never want to worry about getting cards, if you just want the convenience, you should be prepared to pay a premium. It's the same idea as, food delivery. Instead of getting out of bed and going to the store and waiting for pickup, you just sit in bed, continue, playing Monster Hunter, and then the food makes its way to you, and that's the premium you pay. Same idea for cards,
And being
and
attacked.
you've got to be prepared for that. That's because it was an attack, Connor. And yeah, so if you have someone who can hook you up, like if you literally work for a store, for example, this is also, it's not really an attack. I'm not like attacking anybody, but it is the case for at least one person in this cast. Then your supply is probably not too hard to get a hold of. But if you don't literally have those connections, sometimes you might have to pay more than if you were to buy the cards a couple weeks after release. And you just have to live with that because
That's
card games are a
crazy.
hobby. You're going to have to
Yeah.
neg.
It used to be so much worse.
It
Like,
feels
Oh,
Even like 4 years ago, it was so much worse.
yeah. I definitely am very, very glad that if there were any tournaments I wanted to, fly out on a Thursday or Friday and play a set that came out that Friday, like being with a store, like I could get my hands on the cards like Tuesday or Wednesday, like no, like easy, like as long as FedEx doesn't screw up, which happens like 60% of the time. But the having access to cards like as a store, even if you have a local store that gets a lot of product in, being able to have access to that like on release day even, right, is a huge benefit.
I'm sure if you're friends with the store owner, they could probably also hook you up if it's like, I'm gonna be
it's like a one-off
leaving.
day. Like, I'm flying out Friday
yeah.
morning. Like,
Yeah,
can I get this Thursday or something? Like,
yeah. It's gotta
like I'm not gonna
Sto-
condone
sh-
breaking street date.
store
but, like,
owners are people
I think
too.
I think
They could be your
there's
friends.
something there.
sometimes.
Have I told you guys a story about AOT? My AOT story
No, go
about
for it.
speaking of scarcity of products. So like I was trying to max AOT when it released. I did not predict that the foil supply, like the that you could buy, would just evaporate out of nowhere, like out of thin air.
Yeah,
Like,
in like not very long at all.
Yeah, you literally had to buy everything on release for that set. Otherwise, you're just kind of boned. Which I was.
Even non-foils, like
yes,
you almost had to buy on release. Like
it was impossible to find.
I bought Aaron 1-0s on Ideal 808 for $15 a piece release day.
That's a good price.
yeah, by the next day they were like 25.
They,
I was like,
I think they went up to
no.
40 per copy at one point.
Oh, yeah, they definitely got there. They got
But
they got to like 100 a copy not terribly long ago,
yeah,
and they were selling like
Yeah, if
crazy.
you're somebody who wants to max English, or rather just max cards in general, unless your pursuit is like the actual experience of hunting down all the cards, and I know there are people who like that. There are people who really enjoy the thrill of the hunt, for lack of a better term. If you just want to get all the cards immediately, you can definitely consider just buying them all on release. Like, message a store, see if they're getting enough product. If they are, see if you can strike a deal. It's less prominent nowadays because there's just a lot more product being printed. But like, I own Konosuba, and I own Konosuba maxed.
That
And the
was
reason
one of those sets.
it
Yeah.
was it was in one of the dark ages. Basically, I got everything on
one of them.
release from a store. I just said, look, I trust you're not going to rip me off. If you rip me off, I'll start yelling at you, but just give me all the cards I need. This is my list. Thank you. And I got all the cards I needed. I cannot imagine trying to max Konosuba in English in the current day and age. That
Yeah.
seems literally impossible. Like, and I'm what I mean is specifically the build I have, because I've got like the old set 2 combos and stuff.
Oh
Even
god.
even Crimson, like I can't imagine that being particularly easy to get maxed.
That's such a Grail deck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
like
I'm not gonna lie, I was worried about even Hololive, like with
like
the
maxed,
SSPs.
like maxed
Yeah,
Hololive.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like with SSPs being, 31 different ones, and you only get one per case, and like trial deck SPs, and not knowing if there was actually going to be enough supply to meet how many people wanted it. Like, I was concerned that if I didn't get all my foils in like the first week or two, that I was just never going to see them again, right? Like,
Yeah, fair enough.
so I think there was
for
definitely a timeline where like they couldn't get enough Hololive printed to meet the demand, right? Especially
Speaking
with
of-
how many like delays and stuff they've had. Like,
just look at what happened to Japanese. Like,
yeah,
that just the Japanese side is evidence for that being the case.
are you talking about
I think
specifically
that
Marine SSP prices? How they went up
I mean,
and then now they just like fell a little bit.
Suisse is still pretty high, isn't she?
yeah. I mean, all of the Hololive cards in JP really like they came out and they were at a price, and then product dried up, and they all skyrocketed.
Went up
And then
nuts.
as more product has made it out, and they've been able to catch up on printing, they've come back down in price.
Yeah.
But
And that's even with relegation. Like a lot of shops got relegated.
yeah, so
and they still had supply issues.
I definitely
crazy.
was worried about that happening with English as well.
All right. So we
sorry,
have
let
kind
me
of veered.
just I
No,
do
go
want
on.
to comment specifically about the AOT thing. So I was trying to max it. I wanted a triple army Casa. That was like the most elusive foil, actually. More than like Aaron SP, more than Armin SP. It was like triple army Casas. No, literally no one had for sale. So what I did was, I traded in my Charlotte deck at the time for an unopened box of AOT that I knew. So I knew that case was like
Didn't have an SP.
not like I knew it didn't have an SP. So I knew there was a chance that there's a triple army Casa. But yeah, it was my greatest moment. I traded in my Charlotte deck for an unopened box of AOT Volume 2, and I pulled the triple army Casa. It was so sweet. It was the last one I needed. And now Charlotte is like a
story.
And now Charlotte's expensive.
And now Charlotte is like $1 million. So
I'm glad that you got. I can't believe you offloaded the deck of probably the worst in Maeda anime.
Charlotte's $1
for an
million
actual
and
card
AOT
you would
got reprinted. Oops.
People do silly things when they're desperate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Dude, I
we
really
have
needed
veered
it.
a little bit off topic. We have veered a little bit off topic because Tom wanted to humble brag about his maxed AOT, and that's fine. That's fine. He played it in tournaments. But how about we talk about some things that we should keep in mind when we actually travel to these tournaments, and if there's anything that you guys have in terms of little tricks that you use to get things sorted over a longer period of time.
I
Um,
think flights are cheaper if you book them in advance.
yeah, that's more to
Yeah, I
the
mean,
point. I
it,
think the flight prices actually follow a pretty like noticeable pattern. I think in the middle. So what happens is flight prices usually in America. This is just talk about America. I have no idea what it's like in other countries, but I feel like it's usually the same. They usually follow a pattern. Might be a different pattern than the one I'm going to describe right now. But what I found was flight prices usually spike early in the week, like Monday, Tuesday, they're at the highest, and they usually go down later in the week, so like Friday or something. And then there are like random weeks within, there are random weeks where flight prices overall just go higher or lower. I want to say 2 weeks before your date is when they're going to be at their lowest, usually.
They'll either be at their lowest or highest. Like, there's
No,
no
I feel like
between.
I feel like it's usually pretty consistent. Because I think that's at the point where the companies are like they just want to sell the seat. So
Would think. Well,
unless it's
some,
like a super hot weekend, unless it's like
yeah, yeah.
4th of July weekend,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, you're never gonna get a good deal for flights
No.
around those times. But like, otherwise, I think it's like a pretty good idea to like kind of be patient and wait for price that you're looking for within reason, of course.
Find friends, convince your friends to go with you.
Yeah.
Hotel is honestly even more so than flights, like especially if you can drive, right? Like hotels are expensive, especially if you want to stay somewhere close to the venue.
Yeah.
in the
Because you have to think
venue
you're there,
sometimes.
or in the venue sometimes. Because you have to think you're there multiple nights, right? So it might seem like, oh, it's only $80 or whatever for where we're staying, but that's $80 for maybe like 3 nights. That's that might be the price of another plane ticket, right? And if you're staying anywhere nicer than that, it can add up really fast. So finding people to split hotels with is very nice, especially if you've got a locals. Don't
Get in early, get in bulk. Those are really important.
don't check your decks in your luggage.
Oh, you did that? Have you done that?
No. I've definitely never done that. I usually don't even check bags.
That would be
So why is that a bad idea?
Because if they lose your bag, you're screwed.
I mean, even if you're insured, it's so.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, like,
what the
best case scenario, you're still probably not going to have your deck for the tournament if that happens.
I mean, it's not even a guarantee that you'll get paid
your
out
deck
the amount. Yeah, like,
right amount, yeah,
like, because who knows how they're gonna value,
right?
Like your stuff.
Yeah, don't check your decks. Just go get deck checked by the TSA when you go through security.
Do you know someone who
Ian, right?
No, he didn't check he didn't lose his luggage. It was stolen.
I thought it was stolen.
Oh, sure. Okay, that happened.
But oh god, checking your decks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you hear about like checked bags getting like to the wrong places all the time. So like, just don't put your decks in them.
I know that
in case anyone's planning on doing that.
A friend of mine talked to me about how he went to the South American Pokemon Internationals, and when he was at the airport, there was a big fuss about because an American, I think it was, one of his bags had been sent not to Brazil but to Ecuador, and it apparently had a lot of stuff in there, like not just his decks but also his laptop, a whole bunch of streaming gear, and that was a big kerfuffle that happened. If you don't want to be that guy, just put your deck, maybe not your trade binder necessarily, but put your deck in your bag. If your bag is not the sort of place you want to put your deck, get a better bag. Get a nice big rucksack. Make sure there's room for like padding. If you're scared your deck is gonna get damaged, then just wrap it in a sweater and put it in your bag.
Yeah.
Make sure it's leaning up against something, like if you've got a laptop in a carry case, or if you've got a binder or something to that tune. Make sure that it's leaning up against that if you really need to. Um, that's another thing, just for general travel advice. Make sure you have good peripherals, like you've got a nice backpack or even a rucksack, depending on what the sort of things you like. I like rucksacks personally, but that may not be for everybody. All right. Okay. So general travel advice, that's not really the sort of cast we are. Something I think is important is we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but kind of the mindset that you have to have for a long series of tournaments. Like, you guys go to every single tournament knowing that you're absolutely going to win, and if you don't, you have to drive your car into the side of the road on the way back, right? That's how it goes.
Oh, absolutely. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're
That
not allowed
is-
to lose. If you lose, then just kill yourself, respawn, try again. That's
Yeah.
how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, kill
Yeah,
yourself
my
in game.
respawn timer is getting pretty long.
Yeah, in game. Kill yourself in game. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go first, Connor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think mindset's a pretty big thing. Like, obviously, like if you're going to the big tournament and you're the kind of person that's even probably still listening at this point, like you're there to win probably, or at least a top. So it's gonna feel bad if you don't, right? Like that's fine. That's acceptable. It's gonna feel bad, but you can shift out of it and move on. But I think it's worth noting like your mindset should be different between the tournament and getting ready for the tournament. Because I think like in a tournament you need to win all your games realistically. In testing at all, like you don't. It doesn't really matter whether you win or lose. Like you're testing to learn your deck and learn your matchups and learn what you need to do, and you can learn those things even if you lose. So I think like you have to make sure you're not focusing too much on just winning all of your games, because then you're going to get really mad because no one wins all their games. Even in like Magic the Gathering, the best players in the world don't have higher than like in the 60s of win percents, right? So like
The all-time greats are like 67, 68%
yeah,
at the top, at the highest level. The single greatest statistic, I think, there's one guy who has a 73% win rate specifically for modern, specifically for constructed. But overall, no one has a win rate better than 70% in top tier Magic.
yeah, like you're gonna lose games. So don't lose track of why you're testing. And then you can shift your mindset to needing to win for the tournament, and then after the tournament, make sure to shift out of that mindset or you're gonna hurt yourself. Go have fun after the tournament.
It's super
even if you
important to
lost.
pace yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't, get tired, or so you have enough energy for the tournament, because you really want to be locked in the day of. Before that doesn't really matter, like Connor said. Recently I have just stopped playing Weiss. Like, if the time frame is like 4 or 5 months until the season starts, I just like stop playing Weiss for a bit.
I'll burn out. Like burnout's real.
Yeah.
Like,
Also because like there's so much, there's like this concept of like necessary information. Like there's like necessary information, there's useless information. I feel like you tend to pick up a lot of useless information that you don't really need if you like try to focus on Weiss as like a competitive thing the entire year. Like a lot of
my
stuff
brain's full of
changes.
useless information.
Yeah, I mean a lot. Okay, fair enough. But I feel like in a practical sense, it's like decks that are good now might not be good 4 or 5 months from now. Like,
Yeah.
Unless you really wanted to wing Springfest, is it worth it to spend that much time practicing Mushoku when you know that Danmachi is coming out a month before the next like the back half of the season starts? I don't know.
Yeah. Like
I would say no. if I'm not playing the deck, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not playing in BRO, like it might not even matter to learn how to play Danmachi against Mushoku, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
that's fair
it could
enough.
just get restricted between BRO and like fall season.
Oh,
Like,
restrictions. I guess
yeah,
it's a
like
new. I forgot about that.
yeah, like the format between now, like your regional might not be until like November.
Yeah.
Like the format between now and then is not going to be the same. Like once you have a date locked in, you sort of know what decks are going to be out by then. Like you can sort of start preparing. But really, you know, if you played Springfest in May, like anything between then and now is probably just playtesting in a format that's never going to matter to you, right?
Yep.
And that's not to say stop playing, right? Because you can always keep getting better, but pace yourself, like Tom said. Don't burn out on it.
I'm so glad they didn't ban Mushoku. That would have been the same as
That
banning
would have been
Danmachi
so
in the league.
funny. That would have been
That would have been
so
very
funny.
funny.
I would have been.
I think it
Dude,
could
I
happen
am
after BRO.
I'm always for entertainment. If there's a choice between, you know, order and entertaining, like that's boring, and entertaining chaos, I'm always for the
chaos.
I'm always for the content, dude. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Sure sucks for those who
Yeah, it sucks for Mushoku players, but yeah, whatever. Dude, it sucks for quintuplets players that their set was legal for BRO and they got changed like a couple weeks ago. Like they're like, oh yeah, by the way, everyone that wanted to play quintuplets for BRO, you can't, by the way.
When is that coming out?
August 12th. Which is 1 week before BRO. And previously they said BRO is using actual release dates. So quintuplets was going to be legal. And then like a couple weeks ago they were like, oh, by the way, we're changing it, so 2 weeks now. And they didn't make an announcement about it either. They only announced that HoloLive was going back to its original date, and they like sort of like ghost updated the BRO page and didn't even like say anything about quintuplets.
Well,
yeah, whoops. But like, also, if you already bought like HoloLive cards, expecting to play that for your like shop challenges or early regionals, and then they changed that kind of sucks too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think beyond pace yourself and make sure, like obviously, not everything is gonna apply the same way, because like in all these like things that we say about pacing yourself and making sure your head is right for the day of, it's like a super subjective thing that is mainly focused on optimizing your performance the day of the tournament. So like, I mean, if you don't really care about, like, if you love the game and you just want to talk about it every day until the tournament, until the day of, that's fine.
Do it. Yeah.
Nothing we've said is like super set in stone. It's just like what we found works for us. But
if you're a content creator, you kind of have no choice.
It's important. Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing is just to, you know, if you want to try a little hard, the most important thing is making sure that you're ready for the day of, and not much else matters in that respect, I think. So you need to think about whatever you need to be at your best on that day. Whether that's like, a routine to get yourself, get your mind right, whether that's realizing that you need coffee in the another big thing is like time, actually. And this is super relevant because a lot of tournaments start in the morning, but a lot of people are not morning people, so it is probably worth it to invest some time in practicing functioning at like 9 a.m. or something.
I've actually got a story here, real quick.
Oh yeah, let's go.
So BCS 2017 autumn. So BCS 2017, normally Atlanta has a regional. For BCS 2017, which was the one that they had spring and fall both going into Worlds, right? They for some reason moved that to Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, I remember this.
So I wasn't able to make it to Jacksonville for the spring one, and I wasn't going to be able to make it for the fall one because, for those of you that don't know, I run a fair bit, and I actually had a 10-mile race in Atlanta on the day of the Jacksonville regional. So I wasn't going to be able to make it to that one. Well, a hurricane flooded the venue in Jacksonville, so they had to move it back to Atlanta. And so like I ran my 10-mile race that morning and then went straight from
No.
the race to the
Giga
train.
Chad.
I actually gave my backpack and deck list and all to one of my friends to take over with him, like before we even left Birmingham.
Giga Chad.
Yeah, so I ran the 10-mile race and then went over to the tournament venue, like as registration. Like he had already grabbed me a badge and everything, and like I just grabbed my badge, grabbed my deck, got ready for round one. It was like for 20 minutes before round one started, and I don't recall any tournament where just like my thought process and like clarity of mind have been as good as that one where like I had gotten up early and exercised and like actually gotten going in the morning, right? Like, and obviously you don't have to run 10 miles, but like if you're the kind of person that can like go for a jog or whatever, you know, maybe waking up in the morning and going for a 10-15 minute jog around your hotel, like, you know, that kind of thing can really help, you know.
Look,
I
let's
got
be
second. I
realistic
got second
here.
in that regional. I lost my best matchup in the finals.
Should have run 5 more miles, dude.
Yeah, I really should have.
Like,
Should have
I
run.
have trouble.
Should have run to the venue.
Yeah,
I
I should
personally
have.
I have trouble moving the 15 meters to my kitchen in the morning a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be. That's
So
not everyone that's going to be able to do that. Like, I know what
that's
card
the
game
thing, though.
players look like, but
Yeah, but the idea is to try and at least be your best on the day. So
yeah,
eat breakfast. There's science behind eating breakfast. It is just the case. Get at least 8 hours of sleep. Some people say they function on less, and yeah, a few people do, but those people are usually farmers. Almost everyone else really does need more sleep.
oh yeah. Don't stay out late the night before the tournament. Do that the night like after the tournament. Like,
Yeah, and
do the tournament and
especially
then go out and eat dinner that night. Like, don't do it the night before.
it's a great joke to like get drunk or get high before the tournament, but that's like
If you want to win, don't do it.
I think a lot of that is giving you a reason to make an
To
excuse for when
justify
you
your
lose.
loss. Yeah.
Yes. So like if you actually want to win, and this goes back to kind of mindset stuff, don't be afraid of losing. Statistically, it's just going to happen. Everyone loses a lot.
Yeah, dude.
We already talked about how win rates for even the best players of all time are really shitty. The best players in the world will lose close to half their matches at any given tournament. So just don't be afraid of losing. Don't make excuses for yourself. And if you really do want to win, you've got to go for it. And you've got to also accept that you're probably not going to win. There's only 1, 2, 3 actual winners on the day. And yeah, just make sure you give yourself the best chance. Play to your outs, and that's all you can really do. Okay. Now, do either of you have anything else that you want to talk about? Maybe about the most recent season of of Weiss. Anything that's come up in that regard?
It was really fun getting to actually play again.
Oh yeah, in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I'm hugely against webcam Weiss. I think not only is it super easy to cheat, and I'm not saying this because of any specific person. I've literally held this view for years. You can ask anyone who knows me. I've always been like this. But actually interacting with another fellow human being at a table where they're sitting across from you, you get to chat with them before the match. Look, make a friend, maybe. That's all such a massive part of it, and you just did not get that with webcam Weiss. Like, one of the webcam tournaments I did play, I was matched up against a long-time acquaintance that I had known from the internet for a long time. Oliver Burke. I don't know what else I would call him. All of his usernames are like not particularly family friendly. And like it was such a soulless match. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It wasn't me. It wasn't him. I'm pretty sure we both like have some degree of respect for one another and the game we play. It just felt so bland. And like maybe that's just me, but I'm so glad that in-person Weiss is a thing again. And even though I'm not able to make, or rather, I wasn't able to make the most recent Springfest, I am very much looking forward to locals and competing and all of that. It's going to be great.
To
I
Chicago, the
agree.
Chicago regional with one of my locals that started really started playing during COVID and he had been to like one tournament before everything shut down. So like it was awesome for him getting to actually play a big tournament in person. And then after that, I mean, I still went to Atlanta, Newark, and Houston, and getting to see everyone and play and hang out and go to dinner. Like there's really just nothing like it.
A lot of
Even the ones
people,
like in Chicago, we sucked. We went 2-3, and we didn't care. We had a blast.
hmm, like
I mean, we cared,
a lot of
but
even when like you're old and grizzled and don't care as much about the game, either because life moved on or you don't have the time to practice or whatever happens. The thing that keeps you coming back is the community. Like
yeah, for
that's
sure.
that's just you for that's everyone in every game. So make friends, go with friends on big tournaments, and if you really want to do well, I suggest that finding other people who really want to do well, that's a really good place to start. All right, I think we've covered a fair bit. It's been a bit of a meandery podcast, but I think that's fine. I don't think we're trying to keep on topic or anything. Do either of you have anything else you want to say to anybody, or any shout outs from the recent season or anything like that?
No.
I ask you this question every single week, Tom. But Connor, do you have anything? Given you are not always on this cast.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I can shout out Anthony Casella, my local that I went to Chicago with. He's opening a store up in Birmingham. We've been posting
Oh,
on all the Facebook groups. We've been doing online sales, but we're opening a physical location now. Uh, Iron City Games. Check us out. We'd appreciate that.
Right?
Yeah,
is Birmingham the Iron City?
yeah, yeah.
I
It
see.
yeah, lots of
Is it actually? Is that like what they export or something?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of how the city got like big in the first place was all the like iron,
Um,
steel. Good way to do that. It was kind of like It was like the Pittsburgh in the South, basically.
so I just looked it up on Wikipedia. There is apparently a place in Georgia literally called Iron City.
Oh, I'm sure. I'd believe it.
There is a ghost town in Utah called Iron City, and there's a Tennessee Iron City as well. Uh, but yeah, Birmingham Iron City Games. Hit them up. I've ordered from them myself. Service was impeccable. Got my cards. Look, COVID delayed it, but that's not their fault. So definitely worth checking out. And like, I live in Australia, so obviously they must be doing something right if I got my cards. Otherwise, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to leave any feedback, any advice, any ideas, we're always open to it. You can get us on YouTube or on Spotify. Sub, like, do whatever you want. And thank you again for listening. And we'll see you again next time.
Yep.